Alright, chapter Econ. We're on page 39 of my book. 39, okay. In a standard document improvement proposal, Grand Tanker Car Commission by me, Adam Nugent Rosenberger, book dedicated to Grandpa Ed Rosenberger. We're on page 39. Alright, the Econ, the Petroleum Organization mission is of national security with the Joint Chiefs of Staff Unified Command, the Department of the Defense Activity, the ranking Echelon, specific to wartime responsibility. Each organization branches of service for petroleum supply in defensive fuel regions of the DoD Bulk Petroleum Management National Command Authority consists of the President of the United States Secretary of the Defense with that duly appointed with the alternatives to these movements for the troops and military forces directed by the NCA. National security issues are done by the National Security Council, providing forum for discussing consideration issues that require presidential decision. National Security Council is made of President, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, the Director of the Central Intelligence Area, are advisors of the National Security Council. Joint Chief of Staff has no executive authority to command combat forces. Combat forces are assigned a unified and specified command. Those commanders exercise executive authority. Joint Chief of Staff functions are furnish strategic direction on armed forces, prepare strategic plan, prepare joint logistic mobility plan net assessment capabilities of the armed force, provide preparation review of the contingency plan, advise with the critical defenses, deficiencies and strengths and capabilities, advise priority requirements, advise on the program recommendation budget or proposal, assessment military requirements of defensive acquisition programs. 5. Develop, document joint employment of formulated policies coordinated with the military training. Joint Staff Assistant Chairman will 1. Unified strategic direction combat forces. 2. Unified operation combat commands. And 3. Integration efficient team of the land and naval air forces. Staff is organized in 10 directives. 1. Manpower Personnel Directive J1. Operation Directorate J3. 3. Logistic Directorate J4. 4. Strategic Command Policy Directorate J5. 5. Command Control Communication Directorate J6. 6. Joint Operational Planning Interoperational Directorate J7. 4. Structural Resource Assessment Directorate J8. Directorate Information Resource Management 8. 9. Advisor Mapping Charting Geodesy Report Support 9. 10. Official Inspector General. Unified commands are commanded that have the board continuing mission composed of forces of 2 or more military departments. 5. Regional Unified Commands. U.S. Atlantic Command, U.S. European Command, U.S. Southern Command, U.S. Central Command, U.S. Pacific Command, Functional Command, U.S. Special Operations Command, U.S. Transportation Command, U.S. Space Command, U.S. Strategic Command. Department of Defense Agencies report Secretary of Defense, Chief of the Joint Chief of Staff of Defense Intelligence Agency, Logistic Agency, the Defensive Mapping Agency, Defensive Nuclear Agency, and Military Communication Electronic Board. The DoD Mission Bulk Fueling Program shall support the DoD peacetime, wartime missions, permit successful deployment of forces at minimal cost, as well as minimize the number of bulk petroleum products stocked and distributed by minimizing the inventories of the U.S. military forces in 2 categories, POS and BWRS. POS is the amount of fuel used in sustaining peace operations in support of military demands. BPWRS are limited stock for mobility requirements under Secretary of Defense. Military services will compute BWRS or limited to stock level of the mobile requirements under Secretary of Defense requirements under the IAW DOD 4140-25M Chapter 11. The support Joint Petroleum Officers and Petroleum CAP, POL, CAP, and REPOL data each services. Coordinate the release of the limited stock level mobility requirements with the DESC and Joint Petroleum Officers S. Operating, maintaining defensive fuel supply point, maintaining peace operations support and BWRS levels at the defensive fuel supply under their control Army organizations for the petroleum management. Army Engineering Energy Office. For the office provides guidance for the directives of the nature of the Army, its issue, fork structure, responsible the Army activity organization, providing interface between the Army Office and Joint Staff of the petroleum-related issues. Army and Petroleum Center Agency for the Army Military Command. The ACTS are as the Army Manager of Bulk Petroleum advises of the petroleum-related issues, conduct periodic inspection, also reviews Army requirements of worldwide information to the DESC. The Defense Energy Center, Petroleum Units Leader, Army Commander responsible for all ARFOR in theater, inland distribution, bulk petroleum throughout the theater, and ARFOR responsibility. Theater Army organized bulk petroleum support as follows. Petroleum Group TA, ACOM, COSCOM, DISCOM. Petroleum Group 2 group duties include A. Responsibility detail planning, petroleum supply, organization, distribution. B. Assigned directory and theater Army. C. Provide command control for petroleum pipeline terminal operation battalions. D. Manage subordinate unit for petroleum group and the petroleum terminal and pipeline operation battalion. 3. Petroleum terminal pipeline operating battalion. A. Supervise, operate, maintains petroleum distribution facility within theater and include ports entry pipeline tactical petroleum terminal. B. The battalion major subordinates units and petroleum terminal operating company. C. Capabilities of the battalion operates centrally scheduling shipping office, coordinates movements for the fuel, maintains prescribed reserve, supervises quality surveillance, commands and controls up to 5 companies of 450 miles of pipeline, petroleum terminal and pipeline operating company. A. Operates, mandates multi-product pipeline terminal facility storage distribution bulk fuels. Theater Army Area Command, or a TACOM, provides combat services support to all unit passing through COMSE. B. Subordinate Theater Army Area Command for petroleum operation, logistics, and quality management. Supply company. Quality management company and the supply company provides supply company supply support to customer units. Receive fuel over the petroleum supply company found at theater level of the supply service battalion of the Theater Army Area Command and Corps Support Battalion in COSCOM. Corps Support Command provides combat service to Army non-divisional units of Corps area. B. Provides GS to divisions and corporate. C. Major subordinate unit of the Corps Support Command of the Petroleum Operation Logistics is Corps Support Group. D. Undeveloped Theater of the Petroleum Group, a subordinate unit of the Corps Support Command. Petroleum Supply Battalion. A. Provides command control of the GS Class 3, supports the Corps Divisional Units. C. B. Can provide command control up to 5 companies. Major support. C. Subordinate company units of the POL, a Petroleum Supply Logistic Company, Medium Truck Company, POL. And D. Can be found in both the comms and the Corps area. The Petroleum Supply Company provides GS petroleum support, receive storage, issue transfer to the supply point. Petroleum units with high volume users throughout the theater receive the fuel from Petroleum Terminal Operating Battalion. C. Capabilities installed with operates, retrieve 15 miles of the salt hose line, maintains reserve stock and stores up to 2.64 million gallons of fuel at 10,000, 20,000, and 50,000 gallon collapsible fabric tanks, operates up to 12 fuel system supply points at 6 Forward Army refueling equipment systems. D. Can provide limited direct support, Class 3. E. Found in both theater and corps level division support command. A. Provides combat support to all organic and attached units of the division. B. Subordinate units of the DISCOM for POL or pole or supply with a service company, mainly with a support battalion, supply company, forward support battalion, headquarters supply company, aviation support battalion. Chapter Commission tanker car sets. Interstate Commission change of the tariff of adapting railroad lines or strategic network corridors plans. Superiority the state provides purchase of the gasoline tanker car sets to employ employed with gasoline distribution within the state, making utility lines and establishing state commissions, provided that the transportation by tanker truck are planned routes from the tanker car farms with an agricultural commercial license with set radius to fuel stations and depots. Tanker car train sets are strategized shipment return destination for the last contaminated residual inhabitants. There are two scenarios. One calls for tanker car cleaning for each batch, and the other option is ship the same contents of the last shipment. The planning of the MoGas is sold federally leaves option state tanker car train set to work for the sale of MoGas to Fed Gas with the trains, as well as state tanker car utilities. Utilize the state's strategic network pipeline maps of the military. The type of shipment can be utilized vice versa. Also, federal gas supplies sold to the military. A commission given the reduction of tariffs with the state tanker car training sets. The Title 18 CFR Chapter 1, Part 34, 1.8 Terminal and Other Services. Carriers must publish in their tariff rules governing such manner of the proration of the capacity, demurrage, reorderization, carrier limit, liability, quality, bank consignment, in transit, transfer, storage, loading, unloading, gathering, terminal, batching, blending, commingling, connecting policies, all their charges, service, allowance, absorptions, rules with any of the increase or decrease amount to be paid of any shipment which increase or decrease of the value of service to the shipper, intermediate point regulations that lie along the interstate lines shall be published as any of the carrier tariffs of the intermediate origin points for the area across the state lines, and if standing tariff demurrage cheaper for the consumer than needed for the custody of the product terminal without inline transfer to destination state tanker car trains that should be used. Should the pipeline carrier be given possible naval yard stockpile tanker cars from later consumption with the public and armed forces as tenant or leasing yards for later receiving set out orders to be sold on later market or reserved by state commissions binding set forth like free parking. New chapter Incident Command System. National Incident Management System has three key organizations: Incident Command System Structure, Multi-Agent Coordinating System, Public Information System. Incident Command Structure defines interactive management component, structural incident management, and emergency response organization throughout the life cycle of the incident. The MACS defines interactive management structural support coordinate with the federal, state, local, tribal, region levels with the multi-aid agreements, assistant arrangement. Public information refers to process, procedure, systems, communication, timely, accurate information to the public during the crisis of emergency situation. The Oil and Hazard Material Incident Management Annex describes incidents management activities related to certain national significant oil hazard pollution incidents. National Incidents Management Command System includes command management, preparedness, resource management, communication, information management, supporting technologies, ongoing management, and maintenance. Unified capability. 3 levels of the Incident Command System are available to implementation at hazmat incident, depending on the incident scale. A single command, unified command, unit emergency operation command. Each responsible agents were established command post and its own separate distinct from others. The unified command simply means all of the agency of the function and responsibility of multi-agency or multi-jurisdictional. Incident contributed with the process and aid determination strategies, determine overall incident objective of the plan jointly with the tactical objectives, maximum use of also assigned resources. Strategies and tactics serve as guidelines and incident action plan. Incident action plan unified command structure is an incident command system under the direction of a single individual, the operations sectional chief. The operations section chief is normally from the agency with the greatest jurisdictional involvement. All agents must agree on the office operations section chief. Transfer and pass command. Transferring of command, the process of moving the responsibility of incident command from one incident command to another is called the transfer of command. It should be recognized that the transition of command on expanding incidents is to be expected. It does not reflect the competency of the current of the incident command. As emergency operations center activation service to relieve incident command, someone administrative of the duties not commanded or responsible for the incident. Respondents for the incident have specific rules and responsibilities designated by statute. The emergency response plan services include First, fire, first responders personnel, citizen rescue response team for the instant control measure, the law enforcement responsible for evacuation, site and crowd control, and investigation incident with the EMS provides medical care, transportation, and medical treatment facilities. The OTHE agencies, emergency health, and etc. may be responsible for cleanup activities monitoring the incident. Functions of the command: identify the incident objective, develop the incident action plan, assign the responsibility consistent with the plan's standard operation procedure, develop effective incident command organization, provide strategies and tactics, review, evaluate, and revise incident action plan, provide continuity, transfer, and termination of the command, provide safety and personal accountability. The crisis management response plan is a critical component of the crisis response program and adopts an emergency management structure such as the incident command system. Planning includes the type of event, static or moving, type of attendance, control of the free access, single multi-agent involvement, single multi-jurisdictional command, general staff needs of the day of the event, and the incident system. Is incident system planning done with the organization preparation event or for the action to be taken with the managing an event when it takes place? Kind of type of the and number of resources needed, and aviation activities planned, staging areas required, other event faculties needed. Logistic support for event managers, knowing agency limitations or restrictions, communication systems needed. Operational responsibility command includes 3 levels. 1, incident objective, isolation, notification, identification, and protection, control, and recovery termination. 2, strategy. 3, tactics. Second type of the situation, unplanned incident. This type of the situation is different from a planned event in several important ways. The situation occurs prior to the engagement of response personnel. Time is of the essence. The situation is unstable. The situation typically has potential expand rapidity. Communication incident information may be incomplete. Staff on hand may vary in experience of managed expanding incident. There are 5 important steps in effective assuming of the command of the incident in progress. Step 1: the incoming incident command should, if all possible, personally perform an assessment of the incident situation existing in the incident command. Step 2: the incoming must be adequately briefed. The briefing must be with the current incident command and take place with a face-to-face as possible. The briefing must cover the following: incident history, priority, objective of the current plan, resource assignment, facility established, status of the communication, any constraints and limitation, incident potential of the delegation of authority. Step 3: after incident briefing, the incoming incident command should determine an appropriate time for transfer of the command. Step 4: if the appropriate time and notice of the change of the incident command should be made to the agent's headquarters through the dispatch, general staff members, if designated, command staff members, if designated, all incident personnel. Step 5: the incoming incident command may give the previous incident command another assignment of the incident. Therefore, several advantages of this: initial incident command retains first-hand knowledge of the incident site. The strategy allows the initial incident command to observe the progress of the incident and to gain experience. A checklist activities of hazmat, weapons and mass destruction group supervisor branch directors include the following: check in and obtain briefing of the officers, senior chief or Hazmat Weapons and Mass Destruction Branch Director. Develop the control zones, access control points, oversee placement of the appropriate control lines, evaluate recommended public protection actions, option of the officer, senior chief of the branch director, obtain current weather data and future weather predictions, establish environmental monitoring hazard site for the contaminants, develop and implement with the site safety plan, conduct safety meetings with the Hazmat Weapons and Mass Destruction Group, participate when requested in the development of incident action plan, ensure that the responders follow the recommended safety operational procedures, ensure rapid responders select and use proper personal protective equipment, notify the appropriate agencies through the Incident Command, maintain Incident Command System Form 214, a checklist activity of the technical specialist hazmat weapon mass destruction reference includes obtainment brief from the PSC chain and obtainment of the briefing that hazmat weapons and mass destruction reference group supervisor, provide technical support to the hazmat weapons and mass destruction group supervisor, maintain communication, coordinate operation with entry level Entry leader, provide interpret environmental monitoring information, provide analysis, hazmat weapon mass destruction samples, turn capability of the personal protective equipment to the hazmat weapon mass destruction, provide technical information incident for the documentation, provide technical information management in public and private agencies such as the Poison Control, Toxic Center, Chemtrack, State Department of Food, Agricultural National Response Team, assist the PSC with the project of the potential environmental effects of the release, maintain instant command system Form 214, list the LIS instant command forms of the makeup of the effect of the incident action plan. Incident Command System Form 201, Incident Briefing Sketch of the Site, Incident Command System Form 202, Incident Objectives, Incident Command System Form 203, Organizational Assignment List, Incident Command System Form 204, Assignment List, Incident Command System Form 205, Incident Radio Communication Plan, Traffic Plan, Internal and External from the Incident Command System 204, 206, Medical Plan. Alright, new chapter. Chapter Assessing the Reserve Component of the Department of Defense Instruction 1235, 12 June 7, 2006. Assessing the Reserve Component. Armoritized Reserve Components for the National MoGas-fed gas supply system. Training all Reserve Components for the Petroleum Specialist, Moss 92F Specialist, Black Hat Division. Reserve Component Special Activation, Mobilized Strategic Fuel Supply System Point, then fuel defueling. Reserve Components are activated with the President of the United States. Reserve Components are such of the Army Reserve of the Army National Guard Service that may be trained with the non-wartime to serve with the petroleum units. Time allocation may be corrected by using within the supply system. Reserve components would be weakened in a month within greater than 50 reserve units 1 week per year for each unit. In states less than 50 reserve units weeks deployed, weeks deployed Army National Guard equally units and state units week. Arranging Global Force Management Plan or GFMAP. New chapter Freight Brokers. Freight brokers and freight forwarders collaborate shipping and tanker car equipment to giving them for reward creditors shippers with no accidents. With sales made under the qualified carrier, the carrier as transport is recommended the insurance per of the freight container was reduced to percentages of 1/3, 2/5, or even a half, would drastically drop the fuel cost consumer or other from the percentage cut by either the hazmat incidents and preparations in terms of the incident-free periods, thus cutting fuel costs for all consumers on the price of gasoline, which is another way to control the pump. New chapter. Alright, applying the Federal Trade Commission Petroleum Market Manipulating Rule Energy Independent Security Act of 2007, Section 811 and 812, protect the market from price fixing, bid rigging, market allocation schemes, forms of collusion defined by the Antitrust Law, Federal Trade Commission Act, Sherman Act, and Clayton Act, Energy Independent Security Act of 2007, Section 811, the Prohibition, Market Manipulation, unlawful or any person directly and indirectly using employee connection, purchase and sale of crude, gasoline, petroleum distillates as a wholesale, any manipulated of the deceptive device of the contravention of such rules and regulation of Federal Trade Commission may be subscribed with the necessary appropriate public interest for the protection of United States citizens. Title 16 CFR Part 317 Prohibition Energy Market Manipulation Rule 31 7.3 prohibited basis shall be unlawful to person directly and indirectly connection, purchase and sale of the crude, gasoline, crude oil, gasoline, petroleum distillates wholesale to a known given any act, practice, and course of the business, including with the making of the untrue statement of the material of the fact that the operates would operate as a fraud of the DC upon any person. B. Initially failed to state with the material fact and the circumstance were rendered with the statement of the bunch made by such a person misleading, provided with such the mission distorts or likely to distort market conditions for any such product. The ISA and the petroleum market manipulation rules do not apply with the retail sale of the gasoline, diesel fuel, nor do they set with the wholesale price for the covered products. Price fixing agreements among competitors raise and fix otherwise maintain prices at which goods and services of the restricts price competition, violates the law. Identical price of the may indicate with the price fixing conspiracies when the price stays identical for long periods of time. Prices were previously different, and prices do not appear to be supported by increased costs. Bid rigging is a way of soliciting competing bids with the compromise and competitive with the raised price of the purchase for the type of the bid rigging to watch out for bid suppression, complementary bidding, and bid rotation. Subcontracting bid rigging is very hard to detect. Bid supervision happens when one or more competitors expected for the bid or a previous bid agree to refrain from the bidding or withdraw a submitted bid with a designated competitor. The complementary bidding is covering with a courtesy by bidding when a competitor agrees to bid too high or to accept their special terms not acceptable to the buyer, designed to look like a rogue genuine bid. Bid rotation schemes when all competitors take turns as low bidders start strict bid rotation patterns, lower chances of a suggested collusion. Lastly, subcontracting bid schemes. Competitors agree not to bid or submit a losing bid in exchange for the subcontractors or supplier contractors from success for lower bids. Antitrust laws given by the civil action claim in the state of the attorney of the courts, where they by tried by the district courts for the measurement of damage, distribution of the damage, monetary relief covered from the defendants allotted in court. The Federal Trade Commission can sue violators of the EISA or the federal court, imposing the civil penalties up to $1 million a day for each violation over the remedy for the penalties of the Petroleum Market Manipulation Regulation. Whistleblowers include reviewing oil industry acquisition mergers and investigating business conduct of oil gas companies with the possibility of antitrust violation, monitoring rules, and hundreds of the markets within the U.S. researching issues affecting oil and gas competition, use the Federal Trade Commission to protect consumers from oil and gas prices for the anti-competitive unfair competition. A few things you can do with this anti-competitive activity: keep an updated list on potential bidders, solicit bids from as many of the competitors as possible, require bidders to identify with the partners, subcontractors, and joint ventures in their bids, require non-collusion affidavits on every bid, retain bid and purchaser records at least 5 years, allowing them to review. Do not review the name of the prospective bidders or cost estimates before the contract is awarded unless required to do so by law. H.R. 7550, short title, Oil Gas Industry Antitrust Act. The Federal Trade Commission shall conduct an investigation to determine whether the price of gasoline is being manipulated by reducing refining capacity or by any other form of marketing manipulation, artificial increase by price gouging practices, conservative mergers, acquisition involving the producers, refining, transportation, gas stations. Antitrust violations are serious crimes. Report to Antitrust Division, U.S. Department of Justice, 950 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, Suite 3322, Washington, D.C. 20530. The Clayton Act of Section 626 limits the view of the credit instruments within transaction concerned with the sale of the resale, transfer, and gas hauls, other synthetic motor fuel with equivalent usability in any case of which there is no similar limitation transaction concerning such person, conventional motor oil, or 2, otherwise unreasonably discriminates against unreasonable limits of the sale of the resale, transfer of the gas hole, or other synthetic motor fuel with equivalent usability in any case in which such synthetic conventional motor fuel is sold for use of consumption and resale within the United States. Nothing in this section of any other provision of the law effect with the date of the enactment of the Act now even specifically applicable to the sale of the petroleum product shall preclude with any other person referred to subsection A from imposing reasonable fee on the credit of the sale of the resale of the transfer of the gas of the other synthetic motor fuel referred in subsection A, such a fee equal to no more than the actual cost of the such person extended to that credit. 2. Prohibition of this section shall not apply with any of the person who makes available the sufficient supply of the gas hall of the other synthetic motor fuel with equivalent usability satisfied with the customer needs of such product. The gas hall of the other synthetic fuels are made available the terms and conditions which are equivalent to the terms and conditions in which such person conventional motor fuel products are made available. Nothing in this section preclude any person referred to in subsection A for the requiring responsible labeling over the pumps dispensing gas or other synthetic motor fuel within subsection A indicated the purpose in such with the gas. All synthetic motor fuel is not manufactured, distributed, sold by such person. Preclude such person issuing appropriate disclaimer of the product liability damage resulting from the use of the gas or the other synthetic motor fuel. C. Require such person to provide advertising support with the gas oil with the other synthetic motor fuel, or require such person to furnish provided to as such person's own expense with additional pumps and tanks out of the related facilities required for the sale of the gas oil other synthetic motor fuel. New chapter, the Federal Reserve buyback. New chapter, the Federal Reserve buyback. Reserve-based lending common arrangement over the borrowing base of loans secured by the approved reserves known as RBL. Reserve-based lending credit risk of the management include the underwriting and appropriate structuring, acknowledging lending staff, the loan administration practice. These risks include, but not limited to, the credit concentration, production, operational, legal, with the compliance, environmental, interest rate, with liquidity, strategic, and third-party risk. Reserve lenders should generally only consider the approved reserves having at least 90% of the probability that their quantities actually recovered will equal or exceed estimate with determination collateral value. Reserve engineering reports are oil and gas estimate reserve. The reserve reports must be objectively based on the reason, well documented, and completely independent of the loan or origination and collection functions. Reserve-based lending consists of an estimated present value of the future net revenue found from the production sale of existing oil and gas reserves, net operating expenses, tax, royalties, and capital expenditure discounted at an appropriate rate. Borrowing base for each facility should be predominantly proved developed into reserves. Lenders shall conduct risk assessment and risk adjustment factors below the value of the unseasoned producing and non-producing reserves before applying to the borrowing bases, advance, and rates. As part of the lending process, they inquire with the underwriting on the base case for the sensitivity of the case and eligibility of converting underlying collateral to cash, repay the loan. The estimate on the market condition, the impact of the company's repayment ability to the full debit service capabilities is analyzed on both case scenarios. Security Exchange Commission requires an 10% discount rate evaluating reserve-based lending collateral valuation faculties and banks utilizing alternative discount rates, practice decks, assumption for the reserve-based lenders, forecast cash flow, collateral value by committee, determining price decks of the final estimated value, loan structures. Reserve-based lending credit facilities are structured as revolving and reducing a revolving line of credit, amortizing term loan, supported documented borrowing bases. Credit facilities generally fully amortize with the half-life of the reserve, the half-life of the time and year of the required to produce one half of the total estimated recovery production with the payment. Repayment aligned with the cash flow reserves tail test, a term based on the half-life of the reserve or cash flow remaining after loan payout. Reasonable portion of estimated revenue should remain after the debt has been fully amortized. Reserve tail. Borrowing basis should be determined at least semi-annually, subject to reserve engineering report. Lenders typically covenants, credit risk, oil, gas loan covenants designed to limit cash distribution owner shareholders, perform standards and financial reporting. Hedging protect the borrower and the lender from price declines by steady cash flow. Exploration and production companies use hedges to reduce price risk exposure. Hedges are taken in collateral or part of the borrowing basis, advance rates, and limitation of hedges within the loan agreement. The hedges sold by or monetized generally applied to the respective debit. Financial analysis includes the following: adequacy operating with a cash flow to service existing overall compliance financial covenants, including borrowing base limitation as detailed in the loan agreement, responsibility for the company's budget with an assumption of the projection, comparison with the borrower provided with the projection of the actual result, the working capital, tangible net worth, leveraging position, and impact capital expense of the recent acquisitions. Oil and gas loan policy guidelines, lending objectives with the risk of appetite, portfolio limits for the target market, concentration limitation, methodology requirement of monitoring oil and gas markets include pricing and supply, demand trends, overall market trends, industrial analysis, board and committee oversight of the oil and gas lending and engineering departments, officer of the committee lending limits, borrowing base calculation, risk adjustment, price deck, consideration adjustment, advance rate, risk adjustments for PDP, PDMP, and PUD, reserve the risk with the adjustment discount with a non-producing reserve before applying the advance rates, frequency related details of the borrowing base, redetermination, price deck, reevaluation, requirement of independent engineering reports and analysis thereof, the well concentration guidelines, and maximum per single well limited. Financial covenant of the minimum ratio, other than financial information requirements, review requirements, current ratio, fixed charge coverage, cash flow coverage, leverage ratio. Collateral valuation requirements include required remaining collateral as payout, renewal restructuring guidelines include non-accrual to trouble debted within restructuring implications. Remedies declining collateral over advanced situations such as monthly commitment with reductions, pledged additional reserve of the collateral, sale of the non-productive reserves. Minimum required issuances include property, liability, environmental. Define loan staff with the coverage factor for the loan value policies include that rather than debt, but this is pari passu. All debt sharing equally in the production cash flow with available to amortize the debt. Typically, amortization, payout, loan repayment terms include maximum terms for production, revolvers, term loans. Guarantors requirements, hedging requirements, policy and limitations, stress testing, sensitivity analysis requirements thereof, and monitoring requirements of risk inherent in loan dependent on the role of interest to production revenues for the repayment. Alright, credit risk rating and assessment classification guidelines. The loan balance of the 65% of the PV with the FNR with the PDP with the cash overflow analysis indicates the loan will not be amortized with a reserve half-life, but the credit is not performing in accordance with contractual terms of repayment. Instance of the principal advance rates exceed the institution limit of the industry standard of the proposed reserve of the frequent over advance over the occur at a subsequent borrowing-based redeterminations, except for the operating leverage covered in default of delinquent payable for the other evidence. Poor working capital management, significant current, likely future disruption in production, frequently financial statement of revision, change of the trove of the accounting method, maintenance and capital expenditure significantly exceed budget forecast, or the credit is defined as institution as distressed credit. Alright, new chapter oil and gas valuation. The New York MEX price meeting for the average of the New York Mercantile exchange settlement for the light and sweet crude oil delivered at Cushing, Oklahoma. Unreasonable value of the DEF of the MMS determines that the New York mercantile price at the ANS spot price does not represent the reasonable royalty value in a particular case. For the MMS, it may be established reasonable with the royalty value based on other matters. You must place oil in a marketable condition or mark the oil for a mutual benefit of the leaser or the lessor at no cost of the federal government. Income sales of oil gas not fully taxed due to the oil depletion allowance. Reserve-based lending, a complete common arrangement with the borrowing base loan secured by provided resources known as the RBL. Reserve-based lending, credit risk management includes underwriting, appropriate structuring, acknowledging lending staff, and sound loan administration practices. These risks, but not limited to credit concentration, production, operational, legal, compliance, environmental, interest rate, liquidated, strategic, third-party risk. Reserve lenders should generally only consider the approved resource reserves having at least 90% of the probability quantities actually recovered will equal or exceed the estimated determined collateral value. Reserve engineering reports, oil and gas estimates, reserves. The reserve reports must be objectively based on reason, well documented, to comply with the independent of the loan, be completely independent of the loan origination and collection functions. Reserve-based lending consists of an estimate present value of the future net revenue funded by the production, sales, existing oil, gas revenue, net operating expenses, taxes and royalties, capital expense discounted at an appropriate rate. The borrowing base for each facility should be predominantly approved. Developed reserve lenders shall induct the risk adjustment factor too low for the value unseasoned producing and non-producing reserve base before applying borrowing base advance rates. As part of the lending process, inquire the underwriting of the base case for the sense of the case and also the ability of converting underlying collateral into cash to repay the loan, and estimate on the market condition impact of the company repayment ability, full debit service capability is analysis of both case scenario of the underwriting of the gasoline producers through the ranks of the market of petroleum facilities such as wells, storage facilities, and refineries are upstream gas producers in the market where the debt and underwriting is done upstream in the class of the arm to arm's length. They amortize the market to outside of the market market creates either a market play for the established price more than the raw product, while crude oil geared up market, thus the price trends to further downstream driven by upstream, and the market is then callable. In reverse, pipeline and transportation side of industry downstream operating series gathering pooling services over the downstream purchase of the underwriter preferred stock with debt over the gasoline producers. This is a market with the motor carriers of the oil gas warrant price of the market in the market. Gasoline producers call the feature will be lower and the profits are made. Closer to the end of the market, gathering pipeline transportation with federal and oil gas sales are also allocated transportation allowance separate from the roll price of the non-armed links contract. Security Exchange Commission required with a 10% of the discount rate, evaluating reserve-based lending collateral valuation facilities, banks utilizing alternative discount rates, price decks, assumption reserve-based lending forecast cash flow, collateral value by committee determining price decks of final estimate value. Loan structure reserve-based lending credit facilities are structured as revolving line of credit and amortizing term loan supported documented borrowing basis credit facilities generalized fully amortized with a half-life of the reserve. The half-life and the time of the years required to produce one half of the total estimated recoverable production over the repayment aligned with the cash flow. Reserve tail test is a term based on the half-life of the reserve or cash flow remaining after loan payout. Reasonable portion of the estimated revenue should remain after the debt has been fully amortized. Reserve tail borrowing basis should be redetermined at least semi-annual subject review and engineering report. Lenders typically encompass full credit risk of the oil gas loans. Covenant is designed to limit the cash distribution owner shareholder perform standard financial reporting, hedging, protecting borrower lender prices decline and steady cash flow with the expiration production. Companies achieve the hedge of the reduced price risk exposure. Hedges are taken in collateral or part of the borrowing base advance rate limitation of the hedges or loan agreement. Hedges sold or monetized generally apply to the respective debt. Financial analysis includes adequacy of the operating cash flow of the existing overall compliant with financial covenants, including borrowing base limitations, detailed loan agreement, are responsible for the company budget assumptions and projections. Comparison borrow provided production projections with the actual result, working capital, tangible net worth, leverage position, and impact of the capital expense, recent acquisition, oil and gas loan policy guidelines, lending objective risk of appetite for folder portfolio, limited target marketing, concentration limits, methodology requirements of monitoring oil and gas markets, including pricing and supply, demand trends, overall market trends, industry analysis, board and committee oversight over the oil and gas lending engineering departments, officer and committee lending limits, borrowing base calculation, risk adjustment, price deck consideration adjustment, advance rate with the risk adjustment values, PDMP, and PUD reserve recruitment, the risk adjustment discount value of the non-producing reserve before applying advance rates, frequency and required details of the borrowing base, redetermination, price of deck, reevaluation, requirements of the independent engineering reports, analysis thereof, well concentration guidelines, maximum per single well limits, financial covenant minimum ratio of the financial information requirements and review requirements of the current AEG with the current ratio, fixed charge coverage, cash flow coverage, leverage rate, collateral valuation requirements, including required remaining collateral payout, renewal, restructuring guidelines, including non-accrual to trouble the debit, the reconstruction implication remedy with decline collateral, overall advanced situations such as monthly commitment reduction pledge of additional reserve as collateral, sale of the non-productive reserve of the minimum required insurance, including property liability, environmental, defending loan safety, coverage factor for the and/or loan value policies, including over the debt with a pair of pathway, all debt sharing equally with the production cash flow available to the amortize of the debt. Typical amortization payout loan repayment terms include the maximum term of the production revolve with the term in the loan stand. Guarantee requirement, the hedging requirement policy and limitation, stress testing, sensitive analysis and requirements thereof, the monitoring requirements of the risk inherent with the loans depending on the royalty, interest, production, revenue for the repayment. Credit risk assessment with a reclassification guideline, loan balance of exceeding 65% of the PV of the NR over the PDP with the cash flow of the analysis indicate the loan will not amortize with the reserve of the half-life of the category of the non-performing in accordance with the contractual terms of the payment of interest and principal advance rate exceed institution limited industry standards of the procedure provided resources frequent over advance occurred with the subsequent borrowing of the base determination accessible operational leverage covenant default of delinquent payable other evidence of poor working capital management significant and current-like future of the disruption production. Frequent financial statement revision changes the total of the accounting method of maintenance of the capital expenditure significantly exceed the budget forecast. Credit is defined by Institute as distress credit. And I think we read that over again. My editor, the person that kind of edited it for me, put it so in a Lulu form, may have tampered with it a little bit or not corrected the errors. All right, next chapter, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, shows a map, shows the brand, mod, the Big Hill, the West Backwater, and the back shot, show the refining centers, crude oil pipeline distribution systems, SPR storage sites of the Gulf of Mexico. Or the President shall determine quality and quantity of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve product. The President shall notify the Congress in writing of any increase to be made in the stockpile. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve was meant to contain enough crude oil to replace the net imports for 90 days with a requirement of initial storage of 150 million barrels. Congress authorized the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the Energy Policy Conservation Act of 1975. The President may loan the stockpile material to the Department of Energy or the military department if the President has the reasonable assurance of the stockpile material of a similar or superior quantity. So the materials loaned will be returned to the stockpile and paid for with notified with the Congress Defense Committee within writing not less than 30 days before making such loan. Includes written notification under paragraph 2, sufficient support with the assurance described in paragraph 10. Strategic Petroleum Reserve is established in the Treasury of the United States, separate fund to be known as the National Defense Stockpile Transaction Fund. Title 42, U.S. Standard Code, Chapter 77, Subchapter 1, Part B, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, Congressional Finding Declaration Policy. Congress finding the stored substantial quantity of the petroleum product with diminishing vulnerability of the United States with the effect of the severe energy supply interruption provided limited production short-term consequence of the interruption supply in petroleum products. It is the policy of the United States to provide created strategic petroleum reserve storage up to 1 billion barrels of petroleum products to reduce the impact of the disruption in supplies and petroleum products, to carry out the obligation of the United States under the International Energy of the Production Energy Program for the other purposes provided in this chapter. Statute 6239, Development, Operation, Maintenance of the Reserve, expansion beyond 700 million barrels. If the Secretary determines expansion beyond 700 million barrels of the petroleum product inventory is appropriate for the Secretary shall submit a plan of expansion of the Congress Development, Operation, Maintenance Reserve. Powers of the Secretary to develop and operate Strategic Petroleum Reserve, construct with the purchase and lease otherwise acquired and storage related to facilities. Petroleum product storage, transportation, and exchange. Eligibility of petroleum products. Secretary may inquire for the place in the strategy, storage, and transport, exchange petroleum products acquired for the purchase or exchange. It's further declared for the policy of the United States to provide for the creation of the early storage reservoir. Title 30 U.S. Standard Code, Chapter 29, Oil, Gas, Royalty Management. Use in royalty and kind revenue minerals management services. This is the official year 2006. Thereafter, the minerals management services may, under this authority, transfer oil to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the use of a portion of the revenues, royalty, and kind sales without regard to official year limitation to pay with the transportation, wholesale, market centers, or upstream pooling points of the process of the otherwise dispose of the royalty productions and then taken in kind and to recover the mineral management service, the transportation costs, the salaries, and other administrative costs directly related to the royalty and kind program. The Grand Taker Car Commission takes place when the United States stockpiles its targeted Strategic Petroleum Reserve capacity. The United States needs to construct a new facility Strategic Petroleum Reserve site with the National Pipeline Mapping System. Creating a Strategic Petroleum Reserve sites would take United States defense supplies to a new and further expansion of the Gulf of Mexico to other areas. With the oil and gas site, federal lands are subject to inspection audit. Within this inspections, civil penalties required shall be paid as outlined in Title 30, Chapter 29, Oil, Gas, Royalty Management. These civil penalties over the Title 49 CFR 107, the guide that civil penalties PHMSA can be paid to the Treasury Fund in payment of royalty in kind of the petroleum product transfer with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the additional stockpiling with a new size and product royalty in kind achievement of 1 billion barrels. New chapter, Oil and Gas Commission Boards in General. Exploratory Permit Leasing and Procedures. Delaware 7503 Oil, Gas, Mineral Exploration Regulation following covered the lease and exploration with the Department of Defense lands 517. All permits to lease guaranteed with the pursuit of the regulations shall be subject to the prior approval of the Department of Defense of the United States and shall be subject to any restriction or limitation imposed by the Department of Defense. 5.3 Leasing Procedure. Before granting a lease, inviting bids shall give them written notice for the transmitted to Department of Highway Transportation, State Planning Office, the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control, the Department of Health and Social Service, the state of the geologist, the applicant, the perspective of the applicant, with a bidder's publication thereto, with the two or more publication journals circulation pertaining to the industry, with the public by publication there once a week is not less than the other 2 weeks of the newspaper general circulation through the shade of the edition of the newspaper general circulation in the county in which the land lies in the county for the contingent for the area with the consideration for the bidding notice that it shall set forth place of hearing shall set the time not less than 20 days following the day of the last newspaper publication. For the notice shall state with the lease of the awarded binding bidder offering the highest cash bonus in the form of a lease condition binding, and the bid forms may be detained for the commission upon request of the lease for the subject of the approval by the United States Department of Defense Department. The lease shall grant with the exclusive rights to remove the oil and gas, sulfur, the other minerals, deposit lease or land with the primary term of the 10 years, so long thereas for the gas and sulfur, the other minerals that are produced paying quantities from the lease and the land, and lessors diligently conduct the producing of the deepening of the repairing, redrilling, other necessary lease of the well, maintenance of the operation, lease land, or to do with the conduct such operation of the terms of the lease. Any interest in the land or the lands of the simply acquired with the commission of the purchase of donate lease with the consumption of the otherwise may be available to the leaser with the state with the purpose of the containment of the regulation upon such terms of liquidation as may be determined by the commission. This leasing of the procedure of the royalty specified herein pertaining to the activity of state-owned lands, applicant such activity private land subject to the commission review of the purpose of the issuing of the permit to conduct the state operation. No rentals royalties shall be paid for the state of the operating in the private land if it can be sustained by applicant with no public rights are affected. Oil and gas production. Many states require gas distribution companies to have an infrastructure reliability plan with the state of the gas distribution companies that meet with the state of the maximum efficiency rate with the record calculated sale batch of the petroleum products, allotted amount of the barrels to meet with the demand of the state of the petroleum services need. Oil and gas boards across the United States call for permits of the instance of the state of Louisiana calls for permits of the oil and gas petroleum products for the insurance bond of $1 million with each change of custody of the petroleum products from raw to consumer. In Alabama, oil well operators are required to state board certified testing American Petroleum certification periodically on a more annual basis than other states while assigned to well operation for life of the well for drill to be plugged. Permits for the drill of the petroleum product exploratory rights are priced per well at about $250 up to $1,000 and plugged usually at $250 $1,000 and up. When wells are plugged or abandoned, they must meet with the state of the regulation environmental safety practices used wells needed to be a code and an offset with the property with the proper case heading meet a plan required by the commission that meet the inspection and geological approval. Granted to every time a person proposed with a drill, they must file with the oil gas commission or board or commission. They must pay the fees and some of the insurances and bonds, environmental provisions, informing the public through the newspaper, the other media. A drill plan must be certified by the commission. Spill plan should be there be following in the following over the well. Violations happen the well owner of the correct and or can have the hearing on a matter of violation. Violations usually run up to one first, second, and third subsequent offenses or fine for each day after the maximum penalty. Oil and gas commissions and Texas inspectors, any person designated by law enforcement are permitted on gas distribution facilities for the commission investigation and inspection within the state. Most states and trust funds, education, environmental reason for this trust funds are built and well digging and plugging in violation fees. In recent years, signing of the Pennsylvania Pipeline Act has made news. The act is called the building of the Pennsylvania infrastructure to build wells on natural resources in the state using fracturing and horizontal drilling and making Pennsylvania the largest natural gas producer in the United States of America. In the state of New Jersey, oil gas commissions are large and more strict civil penalties than the more on state statutes than Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration Title 49 Code Federal Regulation Part 190 Appendix. Those violations of the statutes will pay considerable to the state and federal government. States along the Gulf of Mexico, except for Florida, are part of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. These oil gas commissions are allocated for the regulation allotments for the petroleum products for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The FRA has the authority to investigate, inspect, enforcement, and responsibility for the entire U.S. rail system. The FRA enforces Title 49 CFR Part 174 Rail Transportation General Rail Safety Regulation, Title 49 CFR Part 209 to 236. DOT has 4 operating authorities that may conduct joint operation best because the certain entities include carriers, ship operators, and forward and subject enforcement by more than one operating authority. DOT and MAODAL Memorandum of Agreement. PHMSA does not primary responsibility. PHMSA does not have the primary responsibility for accidents, including incidents modules using for cargo tanks, freight motor vehicles and motors, vehicle carriers, railroad tank, freight cars and rail carriers, aircraft unloading devices and air carriers. PHMSA field operation investigations may inspect property, make reports, issue subpoenas, conduct hearings, require production of reports, take deposition, accident, incident investigations, field support division supports field investigation branches, enforcement and fitness and certification standards. It is based on Washington, D.C. at the DOT headquarters, Chapter 2, web-based tech, includes safety performance monitoring, daily ranking report, itinerary planner, and analyticals to investigate high-risk areas. Reinspection purposes to verify whether compliance had any of the previously violated with the hazmat material regulation. Reinspection for the case of the warning letter should not be appeared with the eligible for inspection for the 1 year, 1 year, 6 months for tickets. Multi-agental strike force operations may also include federal, state, and local authorities. National Inspection Plan sets an annual priority for investigation each year. Internal data system consists, but not limited to, the case management system, hazard material information system, hazmat intelligence portal, the ACS missile and safety fitness electronic record system, over the other federal data systems. Some of the most valuable external data sources come from the state and local partners such as fire marshals, state police, and state emergency response agencies, etc. Gas detection meters are not required for all field operations. Broad spectrum of OH off to hazmat material safety field operations. They use 4 gas detector mandatory where hazard gas are expected to be present while in confined spaces. Daily ranking report is a planning prioritization of potential inspection sites, organized risk, and effective. Investigators can manually add data priorities to inspection itinerary. All inspection activities must be selected in order priority to precedence. Investigators shall be unannounced. Advance notification of the inspection should be normally unannounced. Advance notification should be given in the case of imminent danger. Most effective conduct after the hours of special preparation. Ensure the presence of the records of the equipment official and the appropriate personnel. Advance notice circumstance the probability effective and thorough inspection. Conducting routine inspections. Priority emergencies, exit locations. Personal protective equipment. Contact hazard material regulation senior representative. Areas to be inspected. Manufacture, filling, shipping, retesting, etc. Tests to be observed. Type tests and type of container. Recording to be examined in shipping, billing, receiving. Personnel to be interviewed. Production staff or retest operator. Exit interview result of the inspection. Identify all parties present during the inspection. Denote names and official titles. Investigators must not sign any form of release over the waiver. Investigator refusal to permit an inspection. First and second refusal. After first and second refusal, a subpoena obtained with the assistance of the chief counsel. Investigator shall return to the facility with the original letter of introduction and the warrant, and if necessary, local law enforcement. If the entry is still denied, the investigator shall lease the premises immediately to the notified of the chief and the investigator. If there is a suspicion of the criminal activity involving hazmat law, the investigator shall contact the assistant chief counsel to coordinate with the DOT office for the Inspector General. The DOT Inspector General will coordinate with the U.S. Attorney's Office to obtain a search warrant, which will be executed by the Office of Inspector General. At the point where the Office of Inspector General may require a PHMSA investigator expertise in hazardous material regulation. If any investigator is unsure of the legal effect of any of the document that may include the confidentiality, that shall consult with the regional chief of the investigator, PHC 10 regional attorney, before signing it. Investigators shall not get involved in the employer or employee interference, strike, or labor disputes. Duties: inspecting duties. Inspect packages. Collect evidence. Chain custody control report form by person or persons of custody of evidence. Ensure that the evidence remains legally valid, admissible within the court administrative hearings. Collect oral statements. Collect complete interview, security inspection of the Department of Homeland Security regulated facilities. Investigators may inspect the facilities that are subject to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Chemical Facility, Anti-Terrorism Standard Title CFDAS Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standard Title 6 CFR Part 27 of Protecting and Security Chemical Facilities from Terrorism Attacks of 2014. Documentation, written statement, interview with best practices, photographic evidence, completing on-site investigation, exiting briefing, and inform when briefing inspector report shall be prepared written with the following manner: single subject facts, thoroughness, style, and coherence. Inspection report details include 1. Report number 2, inspection date, 3. Company name, 4. Street address, 5. City zip code and country, state and zip code, 6. Phone number, 7. Fax number, 8. Registration number, 9. Data universal number system or DUNS, 10. Tax ID number, 11. Additional company information, 12. Company website, 13. Additional company information, 14. Joint inspection, 15. Prior case ticket number, 16. Investigators, 17. Point of contact, 18. Inspection codes, primary inspection codes, violation number, specific citation number, discovered serving range, exhibit numbers, citation number, evidence summary, corrective action, taking additional information, enforcement penalties, and non-enforcement actions. PHMSA enforcement penalties procedure, preparing and initiating civil penalty with other actions found within Title 49 Part 107 Subpart D of the AAHMS over the PHC have the authority to take the action known over the violation of the HMR. The AAHMS have the authority to issue the sanctions, including advisory letters, warning letters, tickets, and as the delegated authority to field operations staff of the PHC as the delegated authority to issue compliance orders and civil penalties. And if the following inspection or under the circumstance of the DAAFO or designee believes that the person has committed a substantial and or serious violation of the hazmat material regulations, these cases will refer to the PHC. With the PHC receive the case of the referral and assigns it to an attorney. The attorney will contact with the investigator to discuss the case and access the question, clarifying the issue, with could possibly request additional information, documentation, investigator participation with the PHC, and critical throughout the process. The respondent has 30 days to respond to the NOBV. It has 3 choices: 1. Pay the penalty; 2. Submit an informal response; 3. Request a formal hearing before an administrative law judge. If the respondent pays the penalty, investigator will have no further involvement in the case, which is closed by the PHC. The respondent elects to submit an informal response, but the respondents may submit a written response to the PHC, request an informal conference or both of them. Rating of the informal response is submitted, but the attorney will provide a copy of the investigator evaluation and the input. This is normally be accomplished via the email or telephone. New chapter. Chapter Railroad Police Officers. Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 28101. In general, under this regulation prescribed by the Secretary of Transportation, Railroad Police Officer that directly employed by or contracted by a rail carrier or certified or the Commission as a railroad police under the laws of the state may be to enforce the laws of the jurisdiction in which the rail carrier owns property to the extent of the authority of the police officer certified or commissioned under the laws of the jurisdiction of that jurisdiction to protect the railroad by act of the or state oil gas board of governor direction employment with a railroad policy police for liable responsible all acts identifiable within their state with the commissioner of the public safety any share of the expense incurred by virtue of an act or deed of mission committed by any such policeman which has an acting or purporting with the Oil and Gas Commission under the Pipeline Hazard Material Safety Administration, whether such act or deed of omission is authorized by sanction or not. Administrative provisions for the Oil and Gas Commission employ as necessary supervisor duty, supervisor, umpire, railroad police officers necessary to carry out the State Oil and Gas Commission within the provisions of the laws, rules, order, entrusting any regular employee with the state with the pay of the state with any of the law of enforcement with such state with the railroad police officers with common carriers or deputized qualified persons for such investigations from responsible oil and gas commissions will multiple state on the crop of the common carrier of the state lines from the transportation pipeline facility wellheads. Directives carried out by the railroad police railroad officer draw for the strategy pipeline secretary of the pipeline railroad officer draw a strategy for pipeline security filed with the House Resolution 3243 for the 117th Congress, also known as the Pipeline Security Act. Railroad police officer to maintain responsibility coordinate with the director of the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency for securing pipeline transportation, pipeline facilities, and carry out pipeline security program. Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 114 F6. The Transportation Security Administration Corps, the Deputy of the Railroad Officer of each state and oil and gas boards of the Commission of the Form of the Physical and Cybersecurity with this of the Transportation Security Administration Air Agency to develop a constellation with the federal, state, local, tribal, territory, and the public and private sector stakeholders, rule and law and order, sharing guidelines, operations, intelligence, information, pipeline, transportation, facility relevant to physical or cybersecurity assessment, including policy plans, practices, training programs, owner, operated pipeline facility. These agents' personal work with the railroad common carrier with a policy with the judicial federal railroad staffing tasking force of the duties outlined within the Pipeline Security Division, amended with the Title 16 of the Homeland Security Act of 2002. Administration of the Transportation Security Administration shall report to the Committee on the House and Security in the House, the Committee on the Commerce, Science of the Transportation Senate, not less than annually on those activities. The Transportation Security Administration shall convey but not less than 2 industry days to engage with relevant pipeline transportation, pipeline facility stakeholders on the matter of security. And then that completes the book, and we're going to take a look at the indexes now. Real quick, I download. This is the only petroleum base I could find on the internet. Let's hope we're actually recording. Northwest Territory Public Works and Services Standard Program. So here's what this goes. It got all the drawings in it for a petroleum base, and if you buy the book, it shows different tank arrangements and caution signs, and we'll just scroll through these. So you see the petroleum base stairs, tanks, fittings, lawns. So that's 100 pages out of the book, and then we're gonna pause it, and we'll show you the other. Next tape will be the appendixes. So this is the appendix, one of the appendices, Tanker Car Volume 3, and then I'll go over Volume 1 and 2 appendix.